In 2021, the UK hosted the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties in Glasgow from October the 31st through to November 13th. Known in short as COP26, the summit brought together 30,000 delegates representing 197 countries in an effort to build upon and advance the goals of the Paris Agreement. Despite criticism from academics, protests from environmental activists, and last minute changes pushed through by major countries, the president of COP26, Alok Sharma, was able to foster a last minute agreement. This has kept the pledge of keeping global warming down below 2 degrees, whilst committing further action over the decade to get this number down to 1.5 degrees. But how does this affect the United Kingdom and its regulatory framework? Well, firstly, COP26 was able to reach agreements, which was set out a global agenda on climate change for the next 10 years. Chief amongst these are agreements to lower emissions, including CO2 and methane, phase down coal rather than phase out, create a relief fund to help poor countries transition to clean energy and phase out fossil fuel subsidies, and stop forestation by 2030. This brings us neatly to the UK and its path to net zero and its strategic framework in order to achieve it. A high-level overview of this would be the following. 1. Reach net zero emissions by 2050. 2. Create an industry for green and sustainable energy with up to £90 billion in private funding. 3. Reduce Britain's reliance on imported fossil fuels to protect customers from price spikes. In order to reach net zero, according to the UK government's net zero strategy, Build Back Greener, it has developed a 10-point plan which includes offshore wind, hydrogen, nuclear, EVs, public transport, aviation and shipping, public sector funding to improve energy use in homes, schools and hospitals, CCS, carbon capture storage, nature funding to combat deforestation and flooding, and finally, financing to make London the global centre of green finance. There are, of course, subcategories to add to this, such as hydrogen, car emissions, and fuel imports, but for the purpose of this video, they are irrelevant. If you want to know more about them, the UK government website sets this out in more detail. Now, this covers obligation for the United Kingdom. Let's have a look at regulation. Firstly, let's start with the announcement of the Regulatory Energy Transition Accelerator launched at COP26 by 4 organisations. Firstly, the International Energy Agency, or IEA. Secondly, the UK's Office of Gas and Electricity Markets, Ofgem. Thirdly, the International Renewable Energy Agency, the IRENA. And finally, the World Bank. This is a global initiative bringing together energy regulators from different countries to discuss, learn and evolve by sharing best practices and challenges they face from their respective countries. Also, the UK government in 2021, after consultation with the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, or the TCFD for short, announced that from April 2022, the UK's largest companies and financial institutions, a number estimated at over 1,300, will be required to disclose climate-related risks and opportunities. The criteria for which businesses are affected are essentially companies with 500 employees or more, or a turnover of 500 million or more. There are more parameters to this, and for more information please use the link below. These disclosures, outlined by the UK government, will be the next step in its path to net zero, and it applies to PLCs, large private companies and LLPs, and was created in line with TCFD's 4 pillars of governance, strategy, risk management and metrics and targets. Finally, we come to the CDP and its role in regulation. CDP is a not-for-profit charity and runs the Global Environmental Disclosure System, which critically supports companies, cities, states and regions to measure and manage their risks and support opportunities on climate change, water security and deforestation. It does all of this at the request of their investors, purchasers and city stakeholders. CDP also boasts some pretty impressive numbers too. $110 trillion in assets requested by company disclosures, with over 590 investors, $5.5 trillion in purchasing power, with over 200 major buyers, over 13,000 companies reporting to the CDP, and over 1,100 cities, states, and regions disclosing environmental information through CDP. In addition to these numbers, CDP publishes a list of top performing cities leading on environmental performance and companies leading in environmental transparency and action. CDP also has a list of accredited advisors and partners with environmental service providers who can help support companies in all aspects of their environmental journey. The Accredited Solutions Provider Programme helps CDP reporting companies to identify their gaps in their environmental performance and connects them with experts who can address these gaps and identify further opportunities for becoming leaders in the corporate climate action space. But why, as a city or company, would you want to disclose this information? Well, for a start, when it comes to business, it can help protect and improve your company's reputation, boost your competitive advantage, thirdly, get ahead of regulation, uncover risks and opportunities, track and benchmark progress, and for cities, it empowers local government's action on climate crisis, adds visibility to new sustainable businesses and stakeholders, identifies strengths and weaknesses within their infrastructure, and helps to inspire innovation and change. Finally, these compelling reasons might be why the CDP has seen an increase of 141% since 2015 when the Paris Agreement was signed, which now represents 64% of the global market capitalisation, which in turn feeds their 2021 to 2025 strategy, setting out how they plan to respond to climate change and the irreversible loss of nature.